On January the 19th, 2021, the then US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo formally accused China of committing genocide and crimes against humanity in his treatment of Uyghur Muslims and other minority ethnic groups in the far western region of Xinjiang. The declaration came on his last full day in office as the Secretary of State. The declaration by Pompeo was a significant event in the international discourse surrounding human rights issues in Xinjiang, China. It highlighted the escalating tensions between the US and China and brought increased global attention to the situation in Xinjiang. The media, of course, went into a frenzy of repeating Pompeo's genocide accusations. Here are just a few headlines from mainstream media. Saving Uyghur culture from genocide. Uyghurs, credible case China carrying out genocide. US accuses China of genocide of Uyghurs and minority groups in Xinjiang. Who ordered Uyghur genocide? Look no further than China's leader. China's treatment of Uyghurs is genocide. It's worth noting here that lawyers from the US State Department concluded that there was insufficient evidence to prove genocide in China. That, however, didn't stop a barrage of media coverage attacking China that went on for months, even years. This had a huge impact on the minds of people across the collective West, conditioning their thinking to believe there was a genocide taking place in Xinjiang. However, examining the facts tell a very different story altogether. Facts that show China was not committing a genocide but fighting a terrorism issue in the Xinjiang region. Later in this video, I'm going to reveal how two prominent scholars from Germany, together with a German lawyer, conducted their own investigation and found no evidence of genocide. But first, let's look at some of the incidents that led to a tightening of security in the Xinjiang region. In 2010, there was a bombing in Aksu that killed 7 and injured many more. In 2011, an attack in Hotan killed 18. In July of that same year, there were knife and bomb attacks. And in December, the Pishan hostage crisis. In 2012, an attack in Yicheng left 20 people dead, including 7 of the attackers. And in 2013, incidents in Bachu led to at least 21 deaths, and in Shanshan, 35 people lost their lives. 2014 saw an escalation of violence that included an incident at Kunming railway station where a knife attack killed 31 and injured 141. There was also a shootout at the Vietnamese border involving Uyghurs, as well as suicide bombings in April and May in the city of Urumqi. As incidents continued to increase, the Chinese authorities decided to act to put an end to this terrorism. This included substantial security measures and counter-terrorism efforts by the Chinese authorities. Many terrorist gangs were taken apart, 13,000 terrorists were arrested, and more than 2,000 explosive devices were seized by Chinese police and intelligence agencies. It was this counter-terrorism effort by the Chinese authorities that has led to scrutiny and criticism from the US, Europe, the UK and a handful of other countries concerning the human rights of the Uyghur population and other ethnic minorities in Xinjiang. If you really want to learn more about the terrorism that happened in Xinjiang and how it was eradicated, then I suggest you watch these 2 documentaries on YouTube. I'll leave links in the description to both of them. Now that mainstream Western media are pushing this alleged genocide narrative, they no longer give any mention to the fact that terrorism was occurring in Xinjiang prior to the Chinese authorities taking action. It's almost as if they want you to believe it never happened. However, doing a little research turns up some articles from 2014. The first one is from the Washington Post on the 22nd of May. The headline reads, "Terrorist attack on market in China's restive Xinjiang region kills more than 30, and goes on to say, attackers in 2 SUVs ploughed through crowds of shoppers in a busy street market in the capital of China's restive western Xinjiang region, setting off multiple explosives, killing 31 people and wounding more than 90, the government said, calling the assault a vile act of terrorism. Next, a report from the BBC on the 26th of September 2014 with the headline, Xinjiang Unrest, China raises death toll to 50, and says 50 people died in violence on Sunday in Xinjiang, Chinese state media said, in what police called a serious terrorist attack. And another report from the BBC around 2 months later, the headline reading, Xinjiang violence, 15 reported killed in attack, and continues on. At least 15 people have been killed and 14 others injured during an attack in the far western Chinese region of Xinjiang, state media has reported. So as you can see from these reports, clearly there was a terrorism issue in Xinjiang, and clearly the Chinese authorities realised that something needed to be done before the situation got out of control. This is the reason why they acted. They acted to eliminate terrorism, and as you will see in the next section of this video, there was no genocide against the Uyghurs or any other minority in the Xinjiang area. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I now want to present the findings of a report by two German sinologists. They are probably two of the most highly respected German sinologists. Thomas Haberer, a senior professor of Chinese politics and society at the University of Duisburg-Essen, and Helwig Schmidt-Glintzer, a senior professor of Chinese studies and the director of the China Centrum Tübingen. In May of 2023, they travelled together with two other German scholars and an international lawyer to Xinjiang and conducted their own private investigation. Their article was then published in a Swiss newspaper. The article is in German, however, I have translated it to English using Google Translate for the purpose of this video. I'll make sure to leave a link to the article in the video description. So now, let me go through a few highlights from the article. They confirm that what happened in Xinjiang was the result of massive Islamist terror between 2010 and 2016, with 12 separatist Islamist movements active at the same time. In 2016, extremist Uyghurs said in an ISIS video that they planned to drown Han Chinese in a sea of blood. Accordingly, they began recruiting young Uyghurs as fighters in southern Xinjiang from Afghanistan and Pakistan. The terror in the region almost led to a loss of control on the part of the central government. They also say it should not be overlooked that the Uyghur population itself suffered from the terror. Beijing was forced to react with undoubtedly overly harsh measures in order to stop the terror and get the situation back under control. At stake was the internal security of the whole of China. Beijing was forced to declare a state of emergency, move military units to Xinjiang and establish a strict discipline regime. It is reported that the various camps that emerged during the peak phase of the fight against terror have now largely been dismantled. They then go on to say there are now clear signs of a return to normality. In the regions visited by the group, police road checks are clearly no longer in use. With the introduction of 15 years of free education for young Uyghurs, the state has initiated a new development push. Finally, they add, the tour group was unable to detect any general discrimination against the Uyghur language and culture. Although in Xinjiang, as in all areas of ethnic minorities with their own language and script, standard Chinese is taught in schools from secondary level onwards. However, as is normal in schools, their native language will also be taught as a compulsory subject. So as you can see, it's quite clear that what happened in Xinjiang was not a genocide against the Uyghurs or their culture, but a fight against terrorism. Terrorism that was also affecting the Uyghurs. Since the government of China succeeded in eradicating terrorism, they have invested large sums of money in that area, in both industry and agriculture, implemented a huge program of education and vocational training, and the Xinjiang region continues to prosper, so much so that Tesla have even opened a showroom there. And in the first 4 months of 2023, the region saw over 50 million tourists visiting. I'd like to show you now a short video clip of the people living in Xinjiang.
在这里干了过程中，我买了一辆车，真的，我在这里过得特别好。
来这里之后，好多员工的家庭情况，变化特别大。我们刚来的时候，我们基本上都骑的是，电动车。现在厂门口，现在都基本上都没地方停车了。
我们以前住的是平房，现在给我妈也买的是楼房，我自己也买了一辆车。
那我们的员工呢，月收入呢，平均下来呢在4500左右，一年下来呢就将近是5万块钱，5万元，5万元按照我们当地这个脱贫的这个额度呢，基本上是9到10人的这个收入，一个人就业也就一家完全可以。但是何况我们大部分呢都是2双职工在这，他们的收入一年下来就将近要10万块钱。
It's very clear that China have eradicated terrorism within their borders with negligible loss of life. Now, let's look at how this compares with the USA's war on terror. For this, we're going to look at some statistics from the Watson Institute, International and Public Affairs at Brown University. This institute tracks both the monetary cost and the human cost of USA's war on terror since the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers in New York. First, direct deaths. They estimate direct deaths to be between 905 and 940,000. Of that total, more than 400,000 were civilians. Next, indirect deaths. This is estimated at between 3.6 and 3.8 million people, bringing the total of direct and indirect deaths to between 4.5 and 4.7 million. Then we have people who have been displaced. This totals 38 million, with 9.2 million from Iraq alone. This is just astonishing. We can see a huge difference in how both China and the USA have dealt with terrorism. China has addressed the root cause of the problem and invested in the people and the area. On the other hand, the USA has killed millions, threw millions more into poverty, created tens of millions of refugees and thrown numerous countries into chaos. And yet the USA, together with their small group of allies, have the nerve to lecture China on human rights issues. Hypocrisy at the highest level indeed. I have tried to be as factual as possible in this video. I will list all my sources in the video description. I would love to hear your comments. However, if the comments are personally insulting, they will be deleted. If you found the video interesting, give it a thumbs up. And if you think it's useful, consider sharing it with your family and friends. And a sub to the channel would be great. However, as always, for now, take care.